So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our virtual meeting of Governance and Council Operation Committee. We will begin the meeting with the clerk calling of the roll. Attendance of today's meeting. Mr. Clerk.
So, members of committee, I will call your name. Councillor Vicente?
Present.
Councillor Medeiros?
Present.
Councillor Williams?
I'm here.
Chair Fortini is here, and Councillor Dillon has not joined the meeting yet. So, Mr. Chair, we have 4 members present. We do have quorum, and we also have in attendance Councillor Bowman, Councillor Santos, Councillor Singh, and Councillor Willens.
Okay, great. So, approval of the agenda. The next item of approval of the agenda. Does any member wish to add any business and items to today's meeting? If so, please use your chat box and add your name to the speakers list. Okay, don't see any. Okay, any other addition to the agenda? There's nothing. We have a motion moved by Councilor Medeiros and also Councilor Vicente to approve of the agenda. All in favor? Okay, don't see any opposed, so that carries. Approval of the agenda. Instead of speaking to record a vote, I will ask if there are any opposed to the motions. Otherwise, the vote will count as informative. Thank you for no objections. So the motion actually carries. So we go to actually number 3, delegation and interest. Does any member have a delegation of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matters to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, so the clerk will note for the meeting's minutes. Delegations, we have no delegations on today's agenda. 5.1, this is the next item, to report for the composition of ward boundaries and the terms of the reference. Do any members have questions and comments regarding the staff report? Please use the chat box and add your name to the speakers list. Is there anybody? I don't see him on the list, sorry. So,
through you, Mr. Chair. So, Councillor Bowman, I see you've questioned me. You've questioned me privately, and also Councillor Vicente. So, the speakers list starts with Councillor Bowman.
okay, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that, Peter. For you, Mr. Chair, I just had some questions regarding. First of all, thank you for doing this. This is fantastic work, and I think it's going to lead to some great things. I just wondered about when in the index or the appendix, we talk about the forecasts, and we do recognize in there that these are forecasts by Hempson, and they don't necessarily reflect what the actual planning numbers are. Because in looking at the numbers, we had that workshop on the community hubs just last week. And the Shoppers World Hub has a future, according to the slides there, of potentially 50,000 people. And so does the Queen Street Hub, 60,000 people, which is divided east or north and south of Queen. But in the numbers, Ward 3 is only scheduled to grow from 2021 today by 20,000 people. So, there's a possibility that ward could double in size. So I don't know how we incorporate these actual numbers to get these numbers looking a little more accurate.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with you, Councilor Bowman. That's why, I find out that the last boundary change was made to change in 2026, and you're correct. So I think we should just leave it like this until the 2026 election. And this way we get a better sense in numbers where the boundaries are and the population. Because I see even Ward 7 probably have to be shifted, but Ward 8 is going to grow too. And we got Ward 2 and 6 and also 9 and 10. So I'm going to leave it till 2026 election. And we'll worry about it then, and we get a better understanding on the growth.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. But with the recommendations here, I'm just wondering, and I'll wait to hear, I think Councillor Vicente is on this as well, but with the recommendations, I would like to see this review. I'd like to see it completed, first of all, but I'd like to see it done by March of 2021 rather than December. Because any changes, if we as council decide to make changes to the boundaries, to the structure, to anything, we have to do it in the calendar year prior. And I don't know if coming back with strictly the review by December 2021 would allow us to get that change in time for this election. So I'd like to see that change to have the boundary review completed by March 2021, which, basically is 9 months from now. And as far as recommendation number 4, I'd like to see all of council, whether we have to form a separate committee, but I'd like to see all of council have their input into the steering committee. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I just want to, before I go to Paul, I have Vicente, Councilor Vicente there. So that's why it was done in 2014 for allowing for 2 elections for 2026. So I like to leave it like that. And in the past, it was always done by planning and the clerk. It was not done by, the council. So it should go to planning and also the clerk. That's what was always done in the past. So I like to keep it the same way. I don't want to change this. I don't want an outside consultant because it's not that hard for our planning staff and the clerk's office to go through this and look at the boundary changes. But we'll see. So I got questions from Councilor Vicente. Want to click on it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had some questions along the lines of what Councilor Bowman mentioned in terms of future growth prospects for the central ward or central area wards. So that is there. To the clerk, to what degree have we considered the conversations around regional review, appropriate size of wards when we put this together? In other words, if I may, just to clarify the question, are the ward sizes now where you're projecting 130 to 200,000? What is an appropriate size for a ward, and how do we compare, for example, with Mississauga?
So through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I'll start by saying after the 2018 election, there was some analysis done by some of the media down in Toronto about representation by population. And it did show at that point in time, I believe, that both Mississauga and Brampton had one of the higher representation by population numbers in terms of, an elected representative for X number of thousand of constituents. Having said that, there is no hard and fast rule on that, and it's all relative in terms of what the council wishes, how they wish to compose themselves and set up their structure. The key variable is trying to get effective representation as set out in our report and population parity to the extent possible. And the prevailing criteria for population parity is about plus or minus 25%, but the target should be about plus or minus 10% in terms of population variation. The current ward boundaries, and based on current population projection information, as they were established prior to the 2014 election, we still would maintain the plus or minus 25% variance target for the 2022 election based on the current ward pairings. The challenge with doing a ward boundary review and trying to find equity is you have other criteria which are just as important, and many say that population parity is still the primary criteria, but if you want to keep neighborhoods together, you want to follow natural boundaries, you want to follow built boundaries, whether they are highways or roads or things like that, using those yardsticks for defining a ward boundary and trying to keep population parity, they don't always align up. So sometimes you have to make some allowances, and that's why the plus or minus 25% population variance is in there, to keep communities together, keep neighborhoods together, follow recognizable boundaries for the public.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and once again through you, Chair, to the clerk. The City of Brampton used to have, according to this, 11, and it switched to 10. I imagine that change was probably made to position the city of Brampton to have a full representation at the region. But given that that has not happened, and I don't know what the likelihood of that happening ever will be, should the city of Brampton be considering, instead of redrawing boundaries in the more established wards, the more mature wards, should we begin to look at how we redraw the boundaries in the wards that have the more robust growth numbers as we see here in these projections? So that would be 9, 10, 2, 6, where most of the growth is going to happen, from what these numbers project, more quickly.
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes, if the intent is to flatten the curve in terms of population growth in those outlying wards, 2, 6, 9, and 10, then it does have implications for all the wards, because you have to change the boundary lines, which will have implications for wards 1, 5, 3, 4, 7, and 8. They will take on more population. And in terms of the regional question, it's a great point that you bring up, Councillor. Under the Municipal Act, prior to the last election, there was a new section that was put into the Act, and it's referenced in the report, that requires Regional Council to turn its mind to regional governance in terms of the structure of regional government. It must do that after the 2018 election, and then every 2 election cycles after that. The region, you may recall, the Region of Peel has, I believe, a Policy and Procedures Committee, it may be called, and they turned their mind to this question back in February, prior to the COVID-19 emergency, and they've deferred consideration of that, I think, until the fall. And to our information right now, we don't know when that question is going to come back, because should the Region of Peel Council make decisions on regional governance, they certainly will have implications on Brampton's council composition and ward boundaries and structure, should council wish to proceed with a review of that. If the region fails to act on that review, I believe it is by the end of this year, then the Minister of Municipal Affairs is empowered to step in and potentially identify potential regional governance structure changes. That's the current law.
Okay, thank you. And I think that that's important as we continue to consider this and prepare to make any potential changes. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. And back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Vicente. Councillor Singh. Councillor Singh?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the work. First of all, Peter, really appreciate it. I do think we are calling it too late to make any changes. I don't feel any personally that we're in a position to make changes for the next election, given the tight timelines. But I think, is there a middle ground we can find, in the sense we start the work now, Peter, we start doing the population analysis and some of the concerns that councillors have regarding future growth. Now we do it slow and steady, and then maybe we could do a council workshop in 2021, and then sort of ratify it after the next election immediately with the new council, and do it very early on in the next term.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's possible. The key date is December 31st, 2021. If a new ward structure is not defined and any appeals resolved by that timeline, then that decision and that structure will not take effect till the 2026 election. But this does not preclude council from initiating an ongoing review, as you said, scheduling a workshop, continuing to monitor population projections as they become more accurate and definitive in terms of growth forecasts. And that work can continue into 2021. And council, this term of council could make a decision in early 2022 in terms of pointing a direction for ward boundaries that would then inform the next term of council for the 2026 election. Yes.
Yeah, and I'd be comfortable with that. I think we should make the work. but I don't think it's going to happen that fast. And I think there's a lot of ambiguity that's going to get cleared up from the regional standpoint as well. And so I'd be comfortable with that, starting the work now and kind of finalizing it in the first year of the next term. And also, what about public consultations? Are normally those done for this as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, they are required because under the Act, the Municipal Act, there is a requirement for a public meeting prior to making a decision on any structural or council composition changes. So there would be public engagement built into any work that's done to start to look at ward boundaries and what they could look like in the future.
Yeah, and I think that would be a great idea. So we have the buy-in as well. So yeah, I'm comfortable with starting the changes now, just starting the research and finalizing it for the 2026 election. So that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. So I'd like to, I don't know if Peter, do I need a motion? I wanted to put a motion forward to leave it the way it is and start working on the boundaries and population in the year 2022 and ready for the 2026 election. So do I need a seconder, Peter?
You don't, Mr. Chair.
I don't need. So,
Sorry, Councillor Patini, it's Councillor Dillon here. Can you hear me?
so can we have a vote on that?
Councillor Patini,
Yes.
it's Councillor Dillon. Can you hear me?
I can, but I don't see your name on the board there, so I don't know. We were calling your name.
Yeah, no, I've been having some technical difficulties. I'm not able to raise my hand.
Okay, so go ahead, Councillor Dillon, before I put.
Yeah, I just want to sorry, I apologize.
It's okay.
I have trouble logging in as well, and so I'm just, I guess I caught some of the comments and then I had to log off and log back on again. So can you kind of just recap what the discussion is as to where it's headed and what, I guess there's a motion on the floor right now?
Yeah, so
What's been discussed?
we've been discussing that to leave everything the way it is for now, and because the last boundary change was done for 2 elections for the year 2026. And we'll have planning staff with the clerk, look into it, continue the process, and by 2022, and we'll have it for the next term for 2026, because if we start the numbers now, we don't know what's really going to happen in 6 years. By time 2026, the numbers could be thrown off, but they could still continue working. And after the next elections, we could consider it to vote on it for the 2026 election, which was already done in 2018 boundary change for 2014 election.
So
boundary change.
the next term of council will decide then, is that what you're saying?
That's right. Because it was already done, it was already planned for 2 elections anyway in 2014, as the clerk said, so it was already planned for 2026. So we'll leave it like that for this term, and then 2022, we have to plan for it. I know the report said everyone having 1 councillor per ward, but how are we going to do that if the region doesn't accept all of us going to the region? So either way, it's pretty confusing. So I think we just leave it like this for this term. So that's my motion on the floor. Just leave everything the way it is until 2026. After the next election, we have to do the boundary change, and we look at the numbers and all, and wall staff can still look at it and send it with planning and the clerks, because that's what's always done in the past. Okay. I see a couple of other speakers. Councillor Williams. Councillor Williams? Sorry, Councillor Willens. Sorry.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think I read through the report quickly, but I think we should still proceed to looking at this possibility for the 2022, being one of the area councillors in one of the highest growth areas. Our boundary now goes west of Mississauga Road all the way over, and we've got all the stuff, plus Heritage Heights coming, and also south, it's go along Mississauga Road to the west. Those houses are now they're lived in, and they weren't there the last election. So I prefer to try and push this as quickly as we can and try and for the 2022. If it can't be done, that's fine, but try and do it for the next election. And as far as representation at the region, I think we can do it like most other, I think Mark and Vaughn do it. It's councillors at large, so whoever gets the highest percentage of votes, those will be the 5 that would sit at the region if the region decides not to change the composition. So I think that can be easily accomplished, and then it can be up to the individual councillors that receive the most votes if they want to represent Brampton as a region or not. And they won't be representing Brampton as they do now. And we're representing Brampton as a whole, not just based on the, whatever respective wards are. So that we can clear up quite, that's my feeling anyway, but if we can be done by 2022, I prefer that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bowman. Councillor Bowman?
Hi, sorry about that. My computer flashed up a sign saying low battery, but I'll plug it in. Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councillor Willens as well. There's no harm in doing this report and looking at the future growth. If we wait till 2026 to implement any changes, huge growth areas like Shoppers World, Heritage Heights, there's an opportunity there. There's a chance there that different councillors are going to be looking at the actual growth of that area than there will be when the area is actually built out. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Again, I've got no issues with going forward and doing the report, looking at the preliminary numbers, discussing. I'm also in favor of going to individual wards because it would make things easier. I just don't see any issue in going forward and having this discussion. So I can't support just not doing anything and leaving this, unfortunately. I think we need to go through. I think we need to have a look. I think the public wants us to have a look at the boundaries, and that's what we should be doing. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Dillon.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, are we going to be having any type of workshop this term, or is everything as a whole going to be deferred? And when we say staff will work on it this term, what exactly will they be working on it? So that's through you, Mr. Chair, to perhaps Peter Fay or anybody from staff.
Oh, I guess Peter,
Through you.
and I'll jump in after.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. So if council makes a decision to not proceed with the ward boundary review at this point and leave the boundaries as they are for 2022, that does not prevent staff from doing some necessary homework, and where necessary having a council workshop to start talking about the different variables and criteria that are at play in a ward boundary review, the latest population numbers, whatever they may be, what they may look like, potential options, trying to sort of reconcile all the criteria with protecting communities, protecting neighborhoods, following boundaries that make sense, and trying to keep population as close to parity as possible between all the wards. So that work could still continue if that's the desire of council. There's no issue with that.
Yeah, I want to remind everyone, we got a lot of development coming. We got the Riverwalk. That's going to change a lot down. We got Heritage Heights. That's going to be a lot of changes, and that's at the region. So doing it now, and then
just a note as well, Councilor Bertini, the census is coming up in 2021, and so that's something that council should take into account as well.
Yeah, and I get that, but we got to look at what's going on at the region, So we do it now, and then 4 years on the road, we got to do it again. The boundaries have been changed in the last 12 years twice already. We got to look at Heritage Heights. That's going to be a big growth, so it's not fair for that area having a big growth. We got the downtown, when we have Riverwalk and all, that we're going to have more high rises coming around there. So that's why, until that actually, all the studies all done, Heritage Heights and all, that's why I think I'd like to leave it the way it is for this term. And 2026, then we get a better number, and they could start in 2021 too, after the next election, and then by the time 2026 comes, we have to do the boundary change, and maybe we might have to add another councillor or two councillors. It all depends what happens at the region. Okay, Councillor Maderos.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, very quickly, I agree with the Chair in terms of us just holding pat and reviewing this in next term of council. And I think there's a couple of things. I remember in 2014 when we first got elected, some of us, we kept reading from a storyline that our population would surpass Mississauga in 10 years or by a certain year. And then 4 years later, we see that the projected numbers are not actually coming to fruition. So no longer can we say. So then at the time, there was a lot of variables. We're during a pandemic, and we know that a lot of this development and population projector numbers are going to be greatly impacted. We know in the industry, and speaking with different developments in our area, that construction is not going to go as fast as we suggest. So I think, especially with the moving parts, especially with how long this pandemic is going to go, I think it would be, any work that we do on this now, there's just too much variables, and we see the province just announced on higher order transit that they want to build more density. Yet, if I'm not mistaken, I did not see for Ontario LRT. So I think these are considerations. There's just too much moving pieces, and I'm sure, as Peter Fay had suggested, staff will keep an eye on this. Staff will continue to monitor this. But for us to go in and do all this work and to do a steering committee when there's too many moving pieces, it's just not. It wouldn't be prudent right now. It would be actually counter-cyclical, and I would support the motion moved by Councillor Fortini. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charmaine Williams?
Hi, good morning. Excellent point being shared by everyone. I agree that there's too many balls in the air right now to make a decision on this, especially with the federal happening in 2023, and then also with the regional review. So I would just like to see us at least a move. I would like to move an amendment just to say that this governance committee or that council writes a letter in support of changes to the region, especially as it's going to be happening in the fall. And then if it doesn't happen, according to the clerk, and you can clarify for me, that the minister will step in. So it seems like the regional review is going to be extremely important. And now is a time, knowing what we know with our growth, it's a good time for us to make the message clear that we at council and Brampton do want to see more representation at that table for the region. So maybe just an amendment, or it's something for us to really consider and look at, whether it's a message from all of council or we start the ball rolling here at governance to say, in order for proper representation at the region, we would like to see out of that review more representation of Brampton at the regional council table.
So we did this last term. We went all the way to Queen's Park. We delegated. We went with buses. The region's not going to accept us being all represented, everyone at the region, one council per ward. They'll veto the walkout like they did last time. When it comes to the province, it's very hard for them to come in and say, yes, we're going to make you all region, because they don't want to fight with Mississauga. They don't want to get involved. The last provincial government, the Liberals, said, you guys work it out. And if we can't work it out, we don't want to get involved. And I'm sure the Ford government is going to do the same thing. So it's going to be a waste of time, because we need all three municipalities at the region to vote. Last term, Mississauga walked out, and they'll walk out again this time. I already know that. They're trying to maybe put an extra councillor there, and we might get an extra councillor here to go to region. But that's the best they'll do. But they're not going to give us all region and have Caledon there, and we outpower them. That will never happen. And we tried so hard the last two terms. So I'm just going to leave everything the way it is. The motion stays. Leave it like that. We're going to check the numbers. We got, like Councillor Bowman, we got all Highway 10 and Steeles, all that big development. We got Riverwalk. We got Heritage Heights. So we do this now. It's going to be a waste of time because then the numbers are going to be out for 2026. That's why it was already changed last term for 2 elections. So staff could still monitor it. Staff could still work on it. We don't need outside consultant. In the past, it was always done through planning and clerk's office. And by 2026, we should be, before actually 2024, we should have a decision on the growth and everything, and then we can make a decision then for the next council for 2026 and change the boundaries.
Thank you. Just for a follow-up to the chair, I wanted to just highlight that because the decision was made to have an actual region review, even though they might not want it, it has to happen. I think it's a really good, it puts us in a good position to relight the fire and the importance of having more representation from Brampton at the region. I think that is something that many have been saying, and like you shared, Councillor Fortini, very well, that you guys went all the way to the province and really took on the charge, which was excellent. And I think now that it's been mandated that a review needs to happen in the fall, and the minister will step in should that not take place. I think it puts us in a good position to really highlight the importance us being there. But, I have no problem with us looking at this at a different time as they approach and as we see how things follow or carry out through the region and their plans as they do the review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the motion, all in favor of the motion? I'll make.
So, Mr. Chair, perhaps I just want to clarify the motion. So then the motion that you're moving is that staff not proceed with the ward boundary review for completion prior to the 2022 election, which effectively means the ward boundary stay as is for that election, and staff conduct preliminary population research and report back to council in the form of a workshop with the intent to complete a ward boundary review in advance of the 2026 election.
Yes, and that'll be done on the next term because, like we said, we got a lot of development coming, Riverwalk, Heritage Heights. So we don't want to do it now and then do it again in 5 years down the road. So we might as well wait until all this gets done. And then we have a better sense of the population. I know Ward 7 can be moved over to Airport Road, and we have to take part of Ward 10. That's growing too. And so a lot of the wards like Ward 7, they're already developed, or Ward 5 or Ward 3, like there's no more things, so we have to do it then. So I'm gonna leave it the way, that's good, and just leave it for the next election. Okay. Councilor Bowman, I didn't see you, sorry.
That's okay. It's my third time. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm just wondering if this, even if we don't do the accounts and the actual numbers in each ward, does that necessarily preclude us looking at going to individual wards?
Well,
That's my question. I mean, there doesn't seem to be anything stopping us from looking at an individual ward per councillor, even with the numbers today. And if those boundaries have to change in the future, then they change. But I think we should be looking at that possibility.
I agree, and I'd love to do one councillor per ward instead of having two like myself and Charmaine, but how are you gonna declare who's region and who's city at the region? So that's where the confusion is. If we would be all region, it would be so easy. So that's why we leave the way it is until the 2026, hoping maybe Mississauga will come to terms and we have the population numbers, and then the province hoping to step in and everyone goes region, everyone takes one ward. But this time we have region and city, just like Caledon. Other municipalities have the same thing besides Toronto and Mississauga. They're all region. So that's where the confusion is.
Yeah, no, I understand that, Pat. It's just there are also other municipalities and other regions that simply have councillors sit at the region at large based on criteria of percentage of votes. It's real simple to do, and I don't know why we can't look at something like that moving forward. Thanks.
So we go over to the percentage. I'm going to jump in. You go to percentage of votes. I'm a number guy. So you got 20 people running you. Your percentage, you get 3,000 votes, you still win. I get one person running me, I'm automatically in because, so it's very unfair. You don't know how many people run in certain areas, so it's hard to go by percentage. I don't agree on that because I remember 2014, I had 13 people run. I still got 9,000 votes, but doesn't mean it happens all the time. So it's better on the name on the ballot. That's how we run. That's how it was always done. We did ask for this, I think it was 2014 or something. We were looking something like that, I remember, and they didn't do it. So I want to keep everything the way it is until, hoping we could all go region, one councillor per ward, but until the region doesn't support us, I don't think so. The minister is going to step in and fight with Brampton, Caledon, and Mississauga. He says, if you guys can't work it out, that's what they told us in the past, I don't want to get involved in your personal business. And then I'm never going to step in. Okay, so that's bad. So we got the motion up here, so we have to ask for the vote?
Yes.
So all in favor of the motion? Do we have to call?
All opposed.
Okay, anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, seeing none? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. So the next item, anyone opposed? This is the new business. Sorry, patient. There's that one there. Yeah, it's a 6.1. This is new business. So I added this. It's a discussion regarding policy and procedures for councillors. So I met with some staff, and they're having a hard time. Everyone's doing everything they want here. We're not following procedures and policies. And this So I want to send this back to, I think it's Jason, Tammy, he's the one in head of this, to come back with the clerk with procedures and rules that all staff and also counselors have to follow, because it looks like everyone here is doing what they want, and they're not following rules, and it's causing a lot of problems for the staff and also us counselors. So do I have any questions on this one here, to send it to staff and come back with the clerk with new procedures and rules that we all have to follow? Okay, seeing none. So I need a motion there, Pierre, or no?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion here. It's by Councilor Maderos. All in favor? Any against? Okay, that carries. So the next discussion is 9.2 regarding, okay, 6.2 is a discussion item regarding the current committee structure. Do any members have questions on the committee regarding this matter? If so, please use the chat box. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, perhaps I could just start.
Yeah.
So this was added to the agenda based on the fact that our procedure bylaw right now has a committee of council defined structure of 4 sections, and community services, corporate services, public works and engineering, economic development and culture. And with some recent decisions made with regards to the organizational structure, there was thought maybe that did committee want to have a conversation about expanding the sections or looking at other, it's within the mandate of this committee if they wish to look at other committee structures. So that's why it's here, just as a discussion item to start the discussion if there is any, in terms of ideas, issues that members may have, and if that triggers a referral for staff to report back, then we can report back in the fall on possible options.
Any questions? Well, I see none, so yes, everyone's happy the way it is. So it's moved by Councilor Maderos. All against? Anyone against? To receive it? No, so that passes. Okay. Correspondence, we have no correspondence for today. Point 8, any questions, Councilor question period. Anyone has any questions on what we discussed today? Okay, seeing none. Anyone else? So, public question period. Do anyone have any questions from the public? Mr. Clerk, anyone send any emails or?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have a question from Sylvia Menezes Roberts.
Okay.
I'll read it, and I think it's in the form of a question. Committee, the population forecasts provided to the committee are significantly out of date despite being approved in April 2020 by Regional Council. While the Hempson preliminary forecast for 2021 is estimated at 689,550, Statistics Canada estimated the population for Brampton on July 1st, 2019 to be 696,975. As the city has significantly outpaced the forecast and the population has significantly outpaced the housing completions, it may be prudent to wait until after the 2021 census is done to figure out where the city is adding population. The population in the older parts of Brampton could be significantly higher than expected. The population in the new build could be higher or some combination of both. For example, as international students have been a significant driver of Peel's population growth, the population near Sheridan College could be substantially larger than expected, or it could be distributed throughout the city, as there may also be significant portions of international students for Humber and York, south of Beauverde and east of 410. So I presume the question in there is the city going to look at Statistics Canada populations? And the answer would be in the analysis that the staff will continue to do to monitor population. We'll look at all population sources, be it Hempson, be it population projections, be it actual population projections or actual population provided by Statistics Canada. We'll look at all sources, definitely.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and thank you, Sylvia. Great question. Okay, no, we have no close, we need someone to receive that? No? Okay, great. Okay, so number 10 is closed session. We have no closed session. Last of business, the adjournment. So the next meeting will be September 14th, unless it's called by the chair and committee, at 9:30, moved by Councilor Vitsantes. All in favor? See any opposed? Don't see any. Is there any correspondence or motion? Otherwise, okay, the vote. Okay, thank you, everyone, and stay safe and stay healthy, practice social distance, and wear a face mask inside the public spaces. Thank you.